Ako po si Manny Piñol, isang tunay na magsasaka na naniniwalang pwede tayong magkaroon ng sapat na pagkain. 30 million hectares, 36,289 coastline, lima sa pinakamahaba sa mundo, sapat na tubig. We can be food sufficient. But we have to correct some flaws in our legislations and policies. Number one, baguhin natin ang rice tarification law. Pinapahirapan natin ang ating mga magsasaka na lalong nasasaktan sa mataas na presyo ng abono. Baguhin natin ang ating marketing system. Alam niyo, as I speak, ang presyo ng tamban sa Zamboanga del Norte, 5 piso ang 1 kilo. Pwedeng dalhin sa Manila, pero sino magdadala? Government must come in and arrange the shipment of these goods from the production areas to the market. Kailangan din nating baguhin yung ating policy on importation. We have to return to the mountains and protect the forest. We have to conserve our water resources. We have to build roads, infrastructure. We have to support local industries. And most of all, kailangan natin ng isang bangko na totoong na magbibigay ng pautang sa mga magsasaka sa mababang interest. And lastly, we could start a nutrition-based food production program by legislation, and we have to institutionalize this para hindi pabago-bago ang ating programa kapag nagpalit ang ating Pangulo. Salamat po.
Driven by Commonwealth Act number 1, drafted more than 70 years ago by Major Dwight Eisenhower and William Ord. Hindi ho ako nahihiyan sabihin sa inyo na magkasing edad kami nung Commonwealth Act number 1. And it drives, the consequence is a non-existent national security policy that is anchored on a clear definition of what constitutes our national interest. Let's overhaul the whole thing, renegotiate the whole thing. In the meantime, self-reliance. Let's prepare to defend ourselves in any situation. Thank you po.
Thank you, Senator Hornasan.
Daphne, may I
yes,
have
go ahead, Dr.
follow-up,
Carlos.
For General Hornasan. Yesterday, I think Biden talked about installing nuclear warheads in Japan. If we are going to renegotiate our relationship with the United States and the U.S. demands that we also set up similar nuclear warheads, what will your position be?
Unsolicited advice to the U.S. President. Hinay-hinay tayo dito. Let us not start something that we cannot finish to the detriment of the global community. Pag nagbabalyahan kayo doon, tumataas yung presyo ng langis dito. Sino nahihirapan? Hindi lang kayo. Kami, the entire global community. Unsolicited advice. Something for us to think, reflect, and pray on.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Speaker Marcalataya.
Senator Greg, hindi ba nung kinanyon yung ating mga kinanyon ng tubig, yung ating mga mangingisda, at kinuha naman ng China yung ating Scarborough Shoal, hindi ba dapat nag-operate na yung Article 3 na kung saan kapag natetreten, sabi niya doon, yung ating political independence or even our security, kailangan nag-uusap itong dalawa. Wala akong nakitang pag-uusap. Ano kayang masasabi mo ron?
Una-una po, hanggang ngayon, kaya binanggit ko kanina yung national interest. Ano ba pinaggigirian natin doon? No? Isda, langis, lupa, tubig, nasa ilalim ng tubig. Let's be very clear about what we are going to fight and die for as a people.
So are we going to die for fish?
Yes.
Well, because I think we're also talking food security. I think Secretary Piñol talked about food security as the top of the list. Because it seems to me that that is really what we're fighting for. Not really oil, because we're moving away from oil. General Hornasan?
Well, ma'am, yun nga ho hindi malinaw. It may be clear to some of us, but it is not clear to every able-bodied, freedom-loving Filipino. Dapat alam nila ito. Dahil ang nakataya rito, hindi yung survival ng bawat isa sa atin. Ang nakataya rito is the survival of the Filipino nation.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a question from Yusek Pimentel.
Ang sabi ni Senator Honasan is that dapat maghinay-hinay ang Amerika. Based on experience, never po naghinay-hinay ang Amerika. Tayo dito sa Pilipinas, maraming eksperyensya ng ating mga kabataan at kababaihan ay nagkakaroon ng masamang eksperyensya when it comes to war, and even kahit doon sa Mindanao, lalong-lalo na kami, marami tayong eksperyensya even dito sa mga bases and ng ating mga karatig na bansa at lalong-lalo na sa Amerika.
May I reply?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Wala naman ho tayong military bases sa California. Kung patas talaga ang laban, dapat patas, pareho. May bases sila rito. May EDCA. Bakit wala tayo dun sa California? So, hindi ko alam kung...
Okay.
Truth that matters.
This is the SMNI Senatorial Debate 2022. And for our final third round, we'll also have a final question from our panelists. And to ask that final question is UP Professor Dr. Clarita Carlos. Professor Carlos.
Thank you very much. It's quite evident that all of us, particularly me, are way beyond our bedtime. So what we're going to do is I'll just shoot one question and my colleagues here will do the follow-up. Okay, here's my question. You remember Cory Aquino? She was our president. She tried, but she failed to drop the Saba claim. I remember that because I was consultant of Senator Chahani, and Senator Chahani gave that to me as my assignment. What is your position in regard to this? To drop or to pursue?
For this question, Attorney Gadon will answer first.
I think we should pursue the claim on Sabah because historically it belongs to us. The Malaysian government and a gas company that occupies Sabah continues to pay rent on the Kirams, the Kiram family. So therefore, it belongs to the Philippines, and we should pursue our claim.
Thank you.
Attorney Olarte.
Well, we should pursue our claim to Sabah. It belongs to the territory of the Philippines. It is our duty to preserve our territorial integrity. The fact that the Malaysian government still pays rent to the sultans of Sulu is proof that we are the lessor and they are the lessee. And we have the authority, the power to terminate the lease agreement if there is failure of the lessee to comply with the terms and conditions of the contract. In this case, it appears that the rent is insufficient and there are several violations of the terms of the contract between the Sultan and that of the Malaysian government. So therefore, we should terminate the contract, pursue the Sabah claims legally in the International Court of Justice, probably.
Thank you. Mr. Albani.
Salamat. In the name of God, the most compassionate and the most merciful. Alam niyo po, we have to pursue the claim of Sabah sapagkat ang kasaysayan ng kahapon ay nagsasalita. The origin of the government came from Sulu under the so-called Eastern King Dynasty, which is the Maharlikan. Makikita natin, it was headed by Saripul Hasim. In Mindanao, Sultan Kudarat. In Mactan, Lapu-Lapu. In Luzon is divided into three forms of government. Princess Uldua of Pangasinan, Sultan Lakandula, and Sultan Sulaiman. Ang batas natin ay batas ng Diyos. That is the root cause. Makikita natin na hindi natin na-recognize. Nagkaroon ng putukan, awayan. Nagtataka ako dito, gusto ni Gadon na i-pursue yung claim ng Sabah. In fact, ang gusto niya, nakita ko sa video niya, patayin niya lahat ng mga Muslim. Pati daga, pupulbusin niya ang lahat ng mga kapatid natin Muslim. So ako po nagtataka, sana mapaliwanag ng mahal natin kapatid. Salamat tayo sa mga Muslim, hindi siya pinatulan sapagkat hindi mangbang sa kasaysayan ng kahaban.
Thank you, Mr. Albani. Do you want to have a rebuttal, Attorney Gadon?
Yes. Yes. I clarified in that TV interview by, I forgot the host. I clarified that I was referring to the terrorist, not on all the Muslims. And in fact, the Muslims became my friends. In fact, the president of the Imam Council of the Philippines is already my kumpare. Inaanak ko yung anak niya sa kasal. Marami akong invitasyon sa mga Muslim
Thank you,
events.
Attorney Gadon.
Oh.
Mr. Albani.
Gusto ko lang iano kay kapatid na Gadon kasi nilahat niya ang kapatid na natin Muslim. Kasama kami doon, mga bata at saka matanda. At sa nasaluduhan ko ang mga kapatid natin Muslim, 17 million population, hindi siya pinatulan. At lalong-lalo pasalamatan ko mga kapatid natin Christian kasi hindi rin siya pinatulan. Sa nangangahulugan ng mga Muslim at saka Christian na hindi bobo sa lipunan.
Thank you, Mr. Albani. Now we'll stick with the issues. We'll go back to our question on our claim to Sabah. Attorney Espiritu.
Well, I go for the right to self-determination of the Sulu and the Sabanese peoples. We could, everything starts on the ground. We cannot create something that is not there. If there is a struggle for the Sulu and Sabanese people in order to integrate their territory, I think that should be left to them to determine. There's a problem with the framework of the nation state being overlaid into this issue because it will always be limited. For example, if we pursue that claim based on simple property relations, that's the problem because the nation state has a different dynamics altogether. So it should really start on the ground, the right to self-determination. That's what I support.
Thank you, Attorney Espiritu. Attorney Bailen.
Yes, I think we need to recognize that Sabah belongs to the territory of the Philippines. However, there are some policies that were made before that undermined or emasculated some of these rights. To the extent that the Kiram family even went to, they tried to go to Sabah to assert their claim. Unfortunately, many of them and their relatives died.